Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We're learning Mishna Gittin, Parak Aleph, Chapter 1, Mishna Gimel, Mishnah 3. Hamevi get be'eretz Yisrael. If somebody brings, meaning an agent brings a get inside of Eretz Yisrael, meaning from one place to another place in Eretz Yisrael, that shliach, that agent does not have to say, in front of me it was written, in front of me it was signed. That is because that even if a get was brought from a different province in Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael consisted of several provinces. Nonetheless, there was enough travel throughout the land. The witnesses could be easily found to authenticate a get if the husband comes and declares it's a forgery. And therefore, there is no need for the shliach to have to say b'fanei nechtam. Im yeshalav oirim. Now, if it comes out that there are people that are going to come to challenge the get, the husband is going to come and claim it's a forgery, then yiskayim b'chaismav. It will then have to be authenticated through those who signed it. Meaning, either those who signed it will come and say, this is our signature, or others who recognize their signature will say it's their signature. But the point is that although we do not obligate the shliach to have to authenticate this get, nonetheless, if the husband does claim it's a forgery, it's going to have to be authenticated. And how's that going to happen? It's going to have to happen through the signatures on the get. Either they themselves who signed it will testify about it, or others who recognize their signature will be able to do so, would do so. Okay, so that's the first half of the mission that talks about bringing a get in Eretz Yisrael. The shliach does not have to say b'fanei nechtam. There's no need to, and therefore he doesn't have to say it. But if it comes out there's a claim of forgery, it's going to have to be authenticated through the signatures. Next, hamevi get mimdinas hayam. Somebody brings a get from a foreign country, brings it from chutz laretz. And he's not able to say b'fanei nechtam. He can't say it. Why can't he say it? What does this mean? This refers to a case where the agent became a deaf mute immediately after delivering the get, for he had a chance to make the declaration. Meaning, he was there, he gives the get, he delivers the get, right? He gave the get, and he was supposed to say before he had a chance to say b'fanei nechtam, something happened to him that he's not able to say it anymore. So since a deaf mute is legally considered to be mentally incompetent, he cannot testify to the get's authenticity. Okay? Now, if, however, the agent was legally incompetent before he delivered the get, he cannot serve as the husband's agent to deliver the get. Delivery itself is invalid. I mean, if something went wrong with this person, he went insane, he became mentally incompetent. If that happened to him before he gave the get, that means he can't be a shliach anymore. He can't even give the get. Can't even do it. In our case, he was okay when he gave the get, and he was supposed to then say b'fanei nechtam. He was supposed to then, testify to the authenticity of the get, and then something went wrong that he can't do it anymore. This is where we say this is the case of where we say hamevi minas hayam v'neyachalayim b'fanei nechtam. He brought the get from a foreign country. He's supposed to say, but he's not able to say b'fanei nechtam. If there are witnesses signed onto the get, it will then have to be authenticated with the signatures. Meaning you won't have the shliach who's going to authenticate it, but if there are signatures on the get, then either those who signed it will come and authenticate. They'll have to, because otherwise you're not going to be able to use it. You're going to have to either have those, again, he came from a foreign country, but if you want this get to be usable, you're going to have to authenticate it with those who recognize those signatures. There'll have to be people from there who came, or other people, but whatever it's going to be, the halacha is that it's going to, in order to be able for this get to be usable, it has to be authenticated. Basically, being that this get needed to have the shliach saying b'fanei nechtam, because it was coming from a foreign country, but then he couldn't say it. So we say, okay, so we won't have his authentication, but we'll authenticate it in the standard way, which is by people coming in saying these are our signatures, or people who recognize the signatures of the witnesses. But but if at the end of the day you can't get anyone to authenticate it, you can't use this get. It's not like in Eretz Yisrael where essentially you don't have to say b'fanei nachtam. in the first half of the Mishnah, this is where you're supposed to say, and you need that. And without it, you can't use the get. Okay, well, without b'fanei nechtam, I'll have the signatures to authenticate it. But if I can't authenticate it through the signatures, then at the end of the day, I'm not going to be able to use this get. Now, two things I just want to mention. If let's say this idea where he couldn't say b'fanei nechtam, they bring down in the notes from the Tiferes Yisrael, the same would apply if the agent had not been present when the get was written and thus cannot declare it was written in his presence. Meaning, the case of the Mishnah is Eino Yachal, he's not able. And the Bartenura says Eino Yachal means something happened to him before he could say b'fanei nechtam. The Tiferes Yisrael says, let's say the Shliach says, I wasn't there, for in written. I wasn't there. I can't say it. I wasn't there. The same halacha would be. If you have the signatures on the get, you'll have to authenticate it through the signatures. If you don't authenticate it through signatures, then, as they say here, however, the get may not be used until it's authenticated, as we learned in the first Mishnah. Now, another important thing to bring out here is that the Mishnah's wording is im yesh alav edim. If there are witnesses on the get, then you authenticate it through the signatures. If there are witnesses, don't there have to be witnesses signed on the get? Yeah. Otherwise, not a kosher get, no? Mm-hmm. Well, that's not so simple. Because actually, the Gemara in Gittin talks about, as a machlek as an argument, as to whether you have to have witnesses signed on the get, or it's enough that witnesses saw the get being given. And if our Mishnah is following the opinions that say that a get can be valid as long as there are two witnesses who saw it being given. So it's not a question of, do I have a get here or not? I have a get because I have witnesses to it being given, and the Mishnah is following the opinion that says that's really enough to have a kosher get. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the witnesses signing on it, right, you're not going to be able to authenticate it. Right? Because you want to make sure the two witnesses who saw it being given over by the shliach are not going to be enough to say that, if the husband comes and says it's a forgery, they're not going to be able to say it was a forgery or not. They're only present at the giving of the get to the woman. They're not there at the beginning. They're not there when the get was written. So if the husband is going to come, he's going to claim it's a forgery, and there's no witnesses on it, you're going to be in trouble because there's no way to authenticate it. But the Mishnah's wording of if there are witnesses on it, you can authenticate it through the signatures. That if is because our Mishnah follows the opinion that a get can be kosher even without the Eidim, the witnesses signing on it, as long as there are witnesses that saw it being given over to the woman. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi. What if